Do you have enough kindness in your life? What I want to discuss today is the importance of kindness in Buddhist practice. I'm Doug Smith of the Online Dharma Institute. That's onlinedharma.org. If you're new to this channel and interested in living a wiser and a kinder and a calmer life, consider subscribing to the channel and click the bell down below if you want to receive notifications when I come out with new videos. I mentioned being kinder. That's part of the aim of our practice, really. We, after all, live in a difficult world. We live in a world full of conflict, of disagreements, some of them really very heated. But at the end of the day, it's really human solace that makes the difference. It's really human connection that can make our lives better, that can make our practice better. We should remember that in one early sutta, the Buddha talked about how good companionship, good friendship, was all of the life of practice. That is, it wasn't just half of the life of practice. It wasn't just half of our lives if we're on the path. It's really all of it. It's what makes practice worthwhile in a certain sense, because practice is a long process. It's not something that we can get done in a short period of time. We need companions. We need friends. We need people with whom we can practice kindness in order to really get through the difficult times. Indeed, oftentimes seem dark. We know that there are difficulties in politics, difficulties in our society, difficulties with our health. Indeed, the pandemic that we've been going through is just such a difficulty. And oftentimes it can seem, when we're in this kind of difficulty, as though there's nothing we can do, as though these problems are so huge that they're outside of our control. And indeed, that may be the case. It may be that there's nothing we personally can do to solve these huge problems. But it may not be the case too. We have to remember that everybody who does make a difference, everybody who is able to make a difference on a global scale is another human being, just like you and I are human beings. They're no different. They just happen to be at the right time and place, with the right set of abilities to be able to help. You may not be able to solve the problem of global warming. After all, it's a huge problem on a global scale. But you can at least make a difference in your own life to perhaps use less fossil fuels, to organize your life in ways that at least make things a little bit better around where you are. You may not be able to solve the problem of environmental degradation. That's, again, a global issue. But you can at least make a difference perhaps on a local scale by doing things such as recycling, by pushing for local ordinances around you that make your local environment better. And while that may not make an enormous difference to the broader problem, every little bit counts. And every little bit is a way of showing kindness, because in helping other people, which is what we're trying to do when we're trying to solve these global problems, we're trying to help other people. In trying to help other people, we are illustrating kindness. We are exemplifying kindness, because any attempt to help out other people, to have the benefit of other people in mind, is a kind of kindness. It is indeed one of the results of the kind roots that we have in our mental operations, shall we say, in our minds. Kindness is something that we can practice every day. Giving people the benefit of the doubt, being charitable when we listen to what people have to say. Also, we have to, though, be kind to ourselves. In other words, it's not enough simply to be kind to other people. It's also critical that we're kind to ourselves. That is, that we not allow ourselves to be walked over. If we feel that we are being bullied or mistreated, then it's part of kindness to ourselves to speak up about it. Now, some people may find it strange or surprising that kindness must include a backbone, having a backbone, but I think it's essential to kindness, to any practice of kindness, that it include having just such a backbone, being willing to speak up when things are bad, being willing perhaps even to speak sternly at certain times. We have to be careful about the right time and place to do such speaking. Oftentimes, stern speech or loud speech, we might say, isn't helpful. It often just inflames things and doesn't change minds, just hardens minds or hardens hearts. And at that point, it's really not going to be very helpful. But I would submit that if we take the time to sit back and consider, we may find that there is a time and place to speak stern truths, and that doing so is in fact itself a form of real deep kindness. So being kind requires us to be clear-eyed. It also requires us always to treat others as our equals, not as people beneath us for some reason, not as menials or something like that. The way we oftentimes tend to speak of people that we disagree with, perhaps, or the way I hear people speaking of the people that they disagree with in various online forums, on television, and so on. I recall a discussion that I had early on, many, many years ago, when I moved into an apartment. And this is an apartment building that had a live-in superintendent. That is somebody who was in the building and had a job there to support the building, to fix things when they broke, to be on hand if he was needed. And I remember when I just moved in, the superintendent took me aside and said, that we would have no trouble with each other as long as I treated him as a human being. And I must say that when he said this to me, I was really quite shocked, because the idea of not treating somebody as a human being was foreign to me. But considering it afterwards, in the years afterwards really, I came to understand that there were people who would not have done that, who might have treated him as somebody who was less than them for some reason. Indeed, one of the owners of the building, a person who owned most or at least many of the apartments and rented them out, sometimes, at least so I was told, treated this superintendent as somebody who was basically less than him. And that was, of course, extremely unfortunate. It made life very difficult for more than just the superintendent in the building. But I think that's a lesson for us all, to remember when we're dealing with people in our ordinary life, whatever walk of life they may be and we may be, to treat others as equals and to be expected to be treated as an equal in return. That's part of this clear-eyed seeing that I'm talking about. Always be on the lookout for forms of thinking that imply that people that we disagree with, people who are different from us, are somehow less than human. We encounter this kind of thought, I think, on a regular basis. We encounter it online. Again, we encounter it in the media. It may not be on the most viewed sites, but nevertheless, it's there. And oftentimes, it can pull us in, because we ourselves feel forms of anger towards others that we disagree with, others who are different from us in various ways. But if we find ourselves thinking of those others as somehow less than us, somehow less than human, we have to be very careful. In fact, we have to question that kind of thinking at its deepest level. We have to eventually, I think, reject it, but we must begin by questioning it and asking what point there is to such destructive ways of thinking. At the end of the day, we're all dealing with difficult situations. These difficult situations in society and politics, they're never going to go away. They're simply going to come back in other forms. And at the end of the day also, it's our shared humanity that can give us common cause, can give us a true sense of grounding to be able to overcome these difficulties, even if, in fact, we may see them differently in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. So kindness at the end is really the bedrock kind of practice that we must undertake. And we may ask whether that really means that we're supposed to be kind to everybody. Now, this is, of course, a difficult practice. It's one that we're not really going to easily achieve. I certainly can't claim that I achieve it all the time by any means. But nevertheless, it's a kind of goal that we must have. I did an earlier video about just this topic, about whether we should be kind to everyone. And I'll put a link to it up on the screen if you want to see it. I would suggest taking a look at it. If you're getting something out of these videos, please check out my Patreon page and see if you want to join us. Thanks so much to all of you, and we'll catch you on the next video. And meanwhile, all of you, please be well.